Helldivers 2 is absolutely amazing, and it's popping off currently.
Back everyone, today I've just got to get us started off with a quote, so here goes. You have to earn the right to monetize. I truly believe that. If people want to support this title, they have the option, but we are never forcing anyone to do so.
That is a really good quote. A quote to live by. If only more developers actually did that. Imagine Blizzard actually earning the right to be monetized, not making monetization and then making a game around it. It would be a completely different situation.
And that's really the quote that rung out. You have to earn the right to monetize. And these words come from the CEO of Arrowhead, Johan Pilstead, and these are in response to thanks. Thanks from players of Helldivers 2. And that's an interesting game because it's the first live service title that's been launched under PlayStation's ongoing but recently cut down live service plan. And as this game is blowing up in player counts and the internet's becoming more and more flooded with memes and reviews and captured footage that's very bombastic and cool looking, well,
Dude, look at this. This is unironically the bug war that we have all been waiting for, essentially. Helldivers 2 is the Starship Troopers that we deserve. Do your part, squash the bugs.
Let's check in whether Helldivers 2 and Arrowhead have actually done the work. How much they have or have not earned the right to monetize, as their CEO has indeed put it. Now, I would like to think that slowly that is something that we are more and more doing. And, well, here's the deal. We publish exclusive content on bellular.ghost.io. Over there, you'll get access to loading screen.
Amazing.
Into Helldivers, a game that honestly I am very excited to jump into. So, what is Helldivers 2? Well, first up, it comes from Arrowhead. They're actually...
Look at this Starship Trooper meets a Warhammer type of situation. Isn't this just great by its own, honestly? And boy, this is something that people don't talk about, but currently there are so many actually good, like, arena-style, horde-based shooters. The Warhammer 40k one is pretty good at this point after a lot of updates. Helldivers, there's an actual Starship Trooper also a game that's currently, I think it's in early access or something, which is also really good. Man, squashing waves of enemies in interesting, cool ways with fun things is actually currently really popping off. We have a bunch of games that are really good at that.
Pretty damn notable because they were responsible for Magicka, which, while not one of the earliest, like, pretty big indie games, it was.
Bruv, I played this. This was amazing, okay? When it came out, absolutely. I still remember the Steam Ray controls, I think. It was fire, water, and I think oh, you can't see. Oh, you can't see. Yeah, well, it is what it is, boys.
Was definitely there in the earlier cohorts, so they did that, and then you had Helldivers 1 coming out in 2015. It looks very different to Helldivers 2, though, because it is a isometric twin-stick co-op shooter, where essentially you are, well, the titular Helldivers, who are, you know, fighting bugs on behalf of Super Earth to defend democracy.
Super Earth. To defend democracy. What do you even need more in life at this point?
See, the satire is great. There's obviously a lot of...
This is not satire, Bellier. You don't understand the heart of men.
Inspiration from Starship Troopers. And on launch on the PS3, PS4, and the Vita, big rip, people basically loved it. It did really well, and it actually became the first Sony-published game on the PC, 9 months after. Helldivers 2 is all of that, but, well, it's definitely a lot higher budget, and I suppose similar to with the previous
it truly just gives a tear to my eye. This is so Starship Troopers, my boys.
Exclusive Returnal. There is very much a step up as we're moving into the PS5. An isometric game has turned into a third-person shooter, of course taking advantage of the PS5 to, well, have very large hordes of bugs. So a sense Helldivers 2 is kind of merging the new with the old. It's taking inspirations from its twin-stick original self, I think likely taking some inspirations from, say, the feeling of some Gears of War and that kind of thing, and it's wrapping it up in a...
Gears of who? Bruh, no one cares about Gears of War. Just throw that franchise in the trash where it belongs. Gears of War! Remember Gears of... No one remembers Gears of War. Deal with it. It's stupid.
Very novel package with, I would say, pretty damn genius, like, macro narrative design. It's really strong. Now, pre-launch, there were some concerns. This was going to be a simultaneous launch.
The fact that they're, by the way, wearing capes, and there's absolutely clearly no reason to wear a cape except for the fact that, well, you're wearing a cape, should tell you also everything you need to know about this.
Or some concerns. This was going to be a simultaneous launch on the PC and the PS5, but would not be a simultaneous launch was the reviews, because there were in fact no pre-launch reviews for Helldivers 2. That is certainly something that does spook people. Now, there's no suggestion that we could find that Sony were essentially like blacklisting people or anything like that, but essentially it
makes sense. Sony would do it.
Dropped without reviews. There wasn't a humongous amount of before launch coverage, and to a degree, this does kind of make sense. I mean, if you're reviewing a big online multiplayer game, but you know, you can't really do the whole online multiplayer thing because it's pre-release. That's obviously not going to be ideal for reviews. Perhaps they wanted to avoid that. But certainly, for a lot of people, well, yeah, it did set a few alarm bells ringing. And while those alarm bells were going off, we were then hit by some technical concerns. Arrowhead basically announced that there would be kernel-level anti-cheat as a part of this game on PC. Now, typically, kernel-level anti-cheat is something that's only really brought out for games where competitive integrity is extremely important. The likes of, you know, Valorant. Call of Duty, of course, suffered from a very, very large cheating problem, so they went for kernel-level anti-cheat as well. So a lot of people would say then, well, why does a PvE game actually need this? Is it too much? Now, that's actually stuff that the developers have spoken to. So Peter Lindgren, who is their technical director, basically talked about...
A lot of people make a lot of fuss about the anti-cheat things and systems. Dude, as long as the anti-cheat system doesn't slow down my PC and doesn't make loading a game like take 20 years, I don't care. Steal my data. Who cares? Yeah, steal my folders of countless MILF porn. Who cares?
Balance and that kind of thing, saying that shortly after release with Helldivers 1, they noticed a cheat going around that granted 9,999 research samples, but any non-cheaters in the same mission would also be granted those research samples. And that essentially meant that the people who didn't cheat, because they were put in a party with people who did cheat, they then had their entire progression ruined.
Ah, that sucks. That sucks, because in essence there's two types of people. Ones who want to earn it themselves, experience the progression, and the ones that just want to be the biggest blasters that they are, and, you know, some of them cheat because of that. Well, obviously, there's also people who think they are better than they are, so that's why they cheat and whatnot. But, you know, it kind of sucks if cheaters are ruining the game for non-cheaters in that way, that, you know, they take away the fun of progression, unlocks, and all of those experiences. That's actually huge.
Through no fault of their own, and it bypassed the intended design. So that's essentially why they're trying to do that. I don't think it's 100% necessary, but I can see from their perspective, it's like, okay, look, there's a big gun, it has a pretty high chance of success, we shall just use the big gun and take our success, because not using the big gun is a lot harder, and it just opens up a big nightmare for us when we're already going to be busy managing a live game. Of course, thinking about how we started today's video, it's with that quote from the CEO. So how do you kind of match what he is saying with this being, you know, the live service games model? So Helldivers 2 both is and is not a typical live service title, and that's where it's interesting. So it has a battle pass. It's called the Warbond system, which I suppose is a pretty good, like, macro narrative way to do a battle pass, just saying it's a war bond. But these basically require to use another currency called medals. Those are earned through completing missions, daily missions. They can also be found in missions as loot.
Bro, everyone does the battle pass stuff, and then there are games like Lost Ark, which is a live service game. I think they also had a battle pass at this point. I don't remember. It's been years since I have played this. But Lost Ark is always one of my favorite unique examples for this, because Lost Ark has pay-to-win elements, that you completely don't have to take part in if you don't want to, and you will still always be able to do the highest level content if you're just actively playing the game. And I'm saying actively now, it's less active and whatnot. And Lost Ark is an extremely hard game. Probably the hardest game that there is, unless you're counting bullshit like, Frustration Mario or whatever. So, it's one of the hardest games ever that has ever been. It's like Dark Souls, Elden Ring. Yeah, congratulations. Those are not even training wheels. That doesn't even count to how hard the typical boss in Lost Ark is. You can't deal with tree mechanics. Congratulations. Here's a boss with 20 to 40 mechanics. And some of those mechanics are just a slight differentiation of pixels and everything changes. Oh, and raid wipe mechanics and whatnot, where individual responsibility is at 120%. Have fun. That game has a really dedicated player base that really love the game, and people just buy skins to support it. And this is what happens with a lot of games that are actually really, really good. People just choose to support them. Look at Path of Exile. They don't have to nickel and dime people. Sure, there is the mandatory buys, which are the stash tabs, and that's the actual price tag of the game. But after that, there are people who just buy, stuff to support the game in general. It happens. If you make such a good game that people love it, people are going to support it.
Where there's some risk reward there. Now these bonds are working on a progression model in that there will be a selection of cosmetics, emotes, premium currency, and weapons to unlock, and the first one is free to...
The weapon part is a little bit oof, but we're gonna see.
Everybody on launch. Now, here's the bit that I think is really the detail that makes all the difference. They're borrowing something from Halo Infinite where war bonds don't expire. The battle pass doesn't expire. It is essentially a matter of, unlocking what you would like and then working towards it, which does actually mean if you put money into a war bond, it's not going to be deleted, which obviously is something that sucks. Imagine you say buy an Overwatch 2 battle pass, life gets in the way, and you basically feel like you have been completely screwed in a way that does feel profoundly unfair. The idea that you are buying something and it just kind of gets taken away. And I would say it also causes a problem for the Overwatch developers in progression. What if you finish the current season and you're like, okay, well, I kind of want to play more Overwatch, but I've ran out of extrinsically motivated rewards because of how this system works. Well, in a game like Helldivers or Halo Infinite, you could just load up a previous battle pass that you bought. I would certainly have to wonder, though, is that something...
Load up? Oh, now I get it. I mean, that's not gonna save Halo. Halo's a fucking disaster show. Deal with it. So, yeah, but loading a battle pass, okay, that sounds good. So you buy a battle pass, you can just, any moment you want, you can just play the game and choose what battle pass that progression goes towards to. That's kind of cool. And it's infinite, I think, or something like that, as much as I understand. Because I haven't played a game like Infinite Battle Pass, so I'm not sure. But yeah, Infinite Battle Passes sound like a little bit dodgy, because how do they make more money? How do they make more money for the company? Because keep in mind, no company is going to say, yes, this thing right here that makes less money than that thing right here that already exists. Yeah, we're going to go. No, they're never going to do that.
That Blizzard doesn't do, because they would rather, say, take something from QuestWatch and then recycle it into the store where they can make, comparatively a lot more money off it. Yeah, maximizing revenue probably does come in the way of a good and fair design for most players. Now, this game does also have a premium currency that you can purchase with real money. They're called Super Credits. Yeah, Super Credits for Super Earth. 150 for $1.99 and 2,100 for $19.99. But you can actually find the premium currency as loot fairly rarely in the middle of missions, and the developers have estimated at launch that it's earnable at a rate of 10 to 40 super credits an hour, and the premium battle pass costs 1,000 super credits, while an individual cosmetic item, like say a helmet,
10 to 20, so 50 hours of play. That's actually fair. That's not that bad.
A cape, armor options, those are between like 75 and 250 in a rotating shop. Now, if you're going to be earning, let's just say 25 an hour, that actually does mean that some of those cosmetics are
Oh, wait, 25 an hour? I thought he said 20 an hour.
readily within your purchase range by just playing the game. Obviously, this is something you could then, and look, I'm not trying to wail on Overwatch 2, it's one of the stories that
I am. Overwatch 2 is absolute garbage, and if you play it, you should feel bad. I absolutely am, though.
think more people understand. It's what immediately comes to mind for me. Now, I'm sure you remember how the currency, at least initially at launch, your premium currency unlocked via the weekly challenges. It was so slow that it would take like 9 months or something like that to purchase a legendary skin. And to people that just felt...
Bro, that's classic Blizzard. That's not the first time they do it. That's not the last time they're gonna do it, bro. Okay? Blizzard and EA are notorious for making free progression systems that require roughly 500 years of game time to unlock half of the good stuff. Okay? Half. So, here's your free progression system, baby boo.
Absolutely ghoulish. It does seem here that that is not the case. Beyond that, then, there's some other upgrade currencies that are used to upgrade your abilities, but those are something that is earned via gameplay. So as far as a live service goes, right, there are premium cosmetics, but it does seem that they are not disproportionately, but as compared to some other live services, they are a bit more generous with how that premium currency can be earned in-game. Yes, they do have a battle pass. That is a battle pass, though, that doesn't expire. So if you are doing a battle pass, that absolutely is the gold standard way to do one.
I need to play a game with an unexpiring gold pass, because again, there's no way they just accept something that just makes less money. So yeah.
Now, there has been some concern about the war bonds because there are weapons in the war bonds, right? So in a war bond, you can get different versions of core weapons. Now, some people would worry that these are a pay-to-win thing. Ultimately, they have slightly different stats, but they're not necessarily better than the free war bond weapons.
Slightly different stats does not matter if it's a unique thing. Okay, if I can get a gun only by spending real life money, that is, I don't know. I don't know if that's we should call that pay to win, but I'm gonna call it pay to win. Okay, because if I can only get this gun in this game by spending real life money, that's bad. That's really bad in my opinion.
And of course, they all still have to be unlocked using the medals that are earned through gameplay, so it's not like you can just immediately go and buy a gun. Now, this is where we're going to go back to Johann's comments on earning the right to monetize, and he's essentially arguing that it's not pay to win for that reason. So he responds to this tweet, pay to win in Helldivers 2, you can actually play the damn game to earn super credits, lol. Again, people just saying shit, so that is somebody responding to the concerns. He then responds to that saying, I'm partial, but we really applied ourselves to not make it pay to win, even though items are functionally different. The only item that's pay to win is the revolver, which you can win any cool gun competition. Only minor problem is it's not that good. So kind of making the joke that like, yeah, look, we're going to sell you a fancy looking revolver, but it's not like it's going to be better. But of course, in a world where you're actually earning a decently meaningful amount of that premium currency via regular ass gameplay, I think to people that's going to be a more reasonable sort of thing. So as an example for earning the medals currency, like that's done via, in one case, the daily challenges. As
the vending machine has a taste of freedom written on it.
One case, the daily challenges, as an example, one of those is just killing 200 bugs, which is very much something you're going to be doing in this game anyway. As for the other things, right, so any season that comes from Helldivers 2 is essentially a always-on campaign that sees the available player base trying to complete missions on the same planets, and essentially it's like a big population-wide goal. And when you complete that population-wide goal, say liberating a planet,
you know what I want to actually see? I want to see a game like this, where the whole world is essentially like Starship Troopers. Well, maybe more than just, sand and rock. aesthetics-wise, maybe slightly, where people just get spawned in random locations and like there's literally hundreds of bugs always coming at you from all directions, and it's just like a giant open world kind of thing, but hundreds of bugs are encountered constantly and whatnot. That would be epic.
Planet, everybody playing will of course be getting rewards. So essentially the monetization is simply unlocking some other ways to progress or cosmetics. It's all quite geared towards just playing the game, and overall, from everything that I've looked at, opinions seem fairly reasonable. I mean, the overall design here, like, you don't play a dude, right? The thing you're upgrading is your ship, your armory. It's not like you're upgrading your dude's weapon, you're upgrading the armory of your ship to have that better weapon, because whenever your dude dies in Helldivers, that's canonical, and another one hell dives in from your ship. Yeah, a bit of 40k, bit of Starship Troopers. I think it's overall a pretty neat way of doing it, and the way that they're kind of doing their campaign, where, you'll go to a planet, you'll go to a sector in the planet, you'll actually be able to join into somebody else's mission via that UI. I think it's just an overall framing that is really, really smart. And again, remember, this is like a $40 game. This isn't a full $70 situation. Like, say, let's think about Ubisoft and Skull and Bones, a game that's, of course, coming.
You can't compare this AAA game to a quadruple game from Ubisoft. Oh, it's just not gonna work. The quadruple A is on a completely different level. Skull and Bones, boys.
Out pretty much any time right now. I believe by the time you see this video, you'll
look at that. You saw that? You can change the sail aesthetic. That's crazy.
Be able to pay, $100 or whatever it is for the premium version of Skull of Bones to play it a few days early. And that's an example of very much, live servicey game, $70, then monetization, whereas this is sailing in at, I think, $40. And in terms of value proposition, from looking about the place, it really does seem to be great. Now, all that's well and good, but what happens if your launch is a little bit of a disaster, which unfortunately for this team, it was. I'll quickly go over things, but basically you were dealing with pretty 50-50, like very, very mixed Steam reviews. People were having matchmaking not work with anyone but friends, crossplay breaking the game, progression not being logged, and of course...
Oh, wow, I didn't even know about these things at the start. Interesting.
Whether you actually get into the game at all.
So you're telling me this game... So considering now everyone loves it and plays it and kind of likes it, so you're telling me a game launch wasn't that great, but the company fixed it? Is that even possible?
Well, that was also a pretty dicey affair. So what happened is the team basically firefought here throughout the weekend. They ended up increasing the cap on their server. So initially, them and their service provider were planned for 250,000 concurrent players. They upgraded that to 360,000 concurrent players.
Nice.
But as soon as that upgrade was done, well, they went straight up to that cap of players. You can see the peak player count in Steam was just shy of 200,000. You've then got to remember how many people actually have PS5s and will have been playing this game. So yes, absolutely, this is a humongous success of a launch in raw player numbers, but certainly not in sentiment because of all of these problems. Now, the thing is, what happens if you have been firefighting all weekend? Well, they essentially had to explain this. For now, please once again accept our sincere apologies for the issues you're facing, and rest assured we're doing our utmost to make it right. In order to do so right now, it is crucial that our team gets some sleep, and we will be back at this again in a few hours. So you're literally getting to the point now where...
Good. As close to slavery as possible for our enjoyment. That is the way games should work. If the developers do not work properly, you physically punish them, morally destroy them, and mentally intimidate them. That is the way gaming should work. The customer is always right.
Where those human factors on the team, those are playing in, where people just need to get like 6 hours of sleep in order to do anything.
We can manage on 4.
Useful. I suppose the development team are maybe getting a little bit too close to the satire of their game for comfort with that. But as we're coming into this week, it is turning out that audiences are feeling willing to forgive the game for all of that. We are now at 75% on Steam, where we were more like 50-50. And ultimately, we're seeing that people do kind of love Helldivers too, to the point where this is, in fact, the biggest launch PlayStation have ever had on PC. That is honestly quite massive. Like, you had the likes of, say, God of War, I think Horizon as well. Like, they have had big launches, but for this to be the biggest, I think makes, well, it's a big deal, but it also does make, I think, a fairly interesting point. So, number one, we're seemingly not seeing a cannibalization of the PlayStation sales. I think for...
You see that? They put a flag in the monster. That is what we want to see, boys. That is what that is what it is.
Game like this, that does actually make quite a lot of sense. I think.
And then they did a chest bump. Okay, nice.
A little bit different to a very single player experience. Like, you're just going to want to buy access to this game and play it with people. So the network effect afforded to you by just having crossplay and it being on more devices, that's just plainly a useful thing. But also $40. $40. So it's $40 for a systems-driven, gameplay-focused experience with very dynamic, varied gameplay as you're playing different maps, different objectives. It's got a core game design that I think just naturally lends itself to making very, social media spreadable moments, even down to things like how they're, how they're approaching friendly fire. At the same time, we're seeing monetization that doesn't feel egregious to the audience, and that's just meant that loads of people are playing this damn game. And even though the servers right now are like, they're visibly strained, people are broadly speaking pretty damn happy. So I think it just goes to show what matters to an audience and what sorts of things an audience is kind of willing to forgive if a developer is open about what they're doing, open about those...
People will forgive anything, nice also, as long as it's a good game.
Human factors, and...
We don't care about the mistreatment of developers.
When it comes to...
What the hell was that? We don't care about anything that happens, as long as the game's good.
Monetization and things like that is actually being fairly reasonable. I mean, if this is a game that had, say, 4-day early access for a $80 or $70 like digital deluxe edition, and then you had these server problems, that would just not set a good tone for the game. And to be honest, that's the kind of thing that Diablo 4 ran into, where, yes, like its first season, which obviously did come a bit later, but its first season, it had some problems. People already...
Diablo 4 Season 1 had problems, eh? Diablo 4 is still an unplayable... Well, it is playable, but it's a... Okay, when people say Diablo 4 is not that bad, they mean it started here, which was complete trash, and if here's normal, it's still not even there. It's slightly above complete unplayable trash. It's copium at this point. Every good word said about Diablo 4 is honestly just absolutely 100% copium of you wanting to play a necromancer. And that's pretty much it. Anyway, this was Quizzer said, thanks for watching. That was Billiard News. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.